For 5 years, he forgot our anniversary. This time, he posted a gym selfie instead. So I served his breakfast with a side of divorce papers. But trust me, that was just the beginning. If you're watching this, tell me where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe, because what I'm about to share might just change the way you see your own reflection. The morning started like every other, too quiet, too cold, filled with the kind of silence that doesn't bring peace. It brings memories. I got out of bed before the sun even peeked over the horizon. It was our wedding anniversary. Not that Dennis would remember. He hadn't in 5 years. Still, something inside me, something small and soft and foolish, clung to hope. I pulled out the cast iron skillet he liked, the one he said made bacon taste like his childhood. I lined up the slices just the way he liked them. Toast, golden. Eggs, scrambled with that little bit of cream. Coffee, strong and black. I set the table, smoothing out the napkins like I used to when the kids were little and birthdays mattered. I even lit a candle, not because I thought he'd notice, but because I did. Then I heard it. That stupid chime his phone makes when he posts on social media. I waited a beat, holding my breath. Maybe, just maybe, he was writing something sweet. A memory, a thank you, an acknowledgement. I walked over. And there it was, his face. Sweaty, smug, smiling at the gym, no days off. Grinding even on the weekends, not a single word about me. About us, about our life. I stood there, still in my robe, the smell of bacon in the air, staring at a man who hadn't even glanced at me all morning. He walked into the kitchen a minute later, sniffed the air like a satisfied customer at a diner. Smells good, he said. Don't forget to flip the toast next time. It was a little too dark yesterday, that was it. No good morning. No thank you. No anniversary. I didn't say a word. I simply walked over to the counter, picked up the manila envelope I'd hidden behind the flour canister, and placed it beside his plate. What's this? He asked, chuckling as he wiped his hands on a napkin. More junk mail? It's your breakfast, I said, keeping my voice steady. And your future? He opened it, still grinning that stupid grin until he saw the first page. His fork clinked against the plate. What the hell is this, Joanne? Divorce papers? He laughed, but there was a tremor in it. You're joking. I looked at him for the first time in weeks. Really looked. The lines around his eyes had deepened. His hair had gone grayer, but he still dyed it. He still cared about how he looked, but never once stopped to wonder how I felt. I'm not joking, Dennis, I said. Not anymore. He stood up, pointing a finger like he used to when the kids did something wrong. You're being dramatic. You forgot our anniversary, I said quietly. Again, Joanne, come on. That's not a reason to throw away 30 years. I took a deep breath. No. But 30 years of being invisible is. He sat back down, rubbing his temples. We've got a good life. We're not unhappy. No, you're not unhappy, I corrected. You have your gym, your routine, your little fan club online. I'm just the woman who does your laundry and refills your prescriptions. He tried to speak. I didn't let him. I'm done being your background noise. I walked upstairs, my heart thudding so loud I thought I might faint. I sat on the edge of the bed we hadn't shared in months and stared at the old photograph on the dresser. Our wedding day. I barely recognized that girl. She had dreams. Now she had rage. That night, he didn't talk to me. Not really. He paced the living room, made a few calls, slammed a few doors. But I stayed in our bedroom alone. It's strange how quiet the world gets when you stop begging to be heard. The next morning, I woke up before him again. I didn't cook. I didn't clean. I didn't make the bed. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and stared out the window. I watched the neighbor's dog chase squirrels. I watched the mailman pass our house like he always did. I watched the world spin on and I thought, what now? I didn't have an answer yet. But I knew this much, I would never be forgotten again. Not by him, not by our children, not by me. And that was when I remembered the box in the attic, the one I hadn't touched in decades. The one Dennis told me to leave alone. My hands started shaking. I stood up and climbed the stairs. The attic smelled like old cedar and forgotten years. Dust floated through the morning light like quiet ghosts dancing on memories too stubborn to fade. I hadn't been up here in a long, long time. Dennis always said it was his space tools, fishing gear, crates labeled in black marker with things like taxes and smuzz lights. Do not throw, but there, tucked behind a sagging bookshelf, was the box I remembered from way back. Gray, dented, with a broken latch and Dennis's handwriting across the lid. Private, do not open. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the silence in the house. Maybe it was that gym selfie still burning in my brain. Or maybe it was 30 years of swallowing secrets like pills I didn't need. But I pulled the box out, coughing through the dust, and sat cross-legged on the attic floor like a child about to open a birthday present. The latch cracked open easily. The first thing I saw were letters, dozens of them yellowed with time, bundled in string. I pulled one out. To my dearest Evelyn. Evelyn. The handwriting was Dennis's, neat, precise, confident. The words were tender, loving, romantic in a way I hadn't seen from him in ever. I read 3 letters before my hands started to tremble. He had written to her for years. Years before we got married. During our engagement. Even after our first anniversary, he loved her. He never stopped. One of the envelopes had a return address, Wichita, Kansas. Another had something else inside, a folded photo. 2 young people on a beach. Dennis and a woman I'd never seen. She had long dark hair and a smile that screamed freedom. There was something scrawled on the back of the photo in pen. July, before everything changed. I knew that date. That was the summer Dennis and I got engaged. My breath hitched. I dug deeper into the box and found a small envelope marked confidential. Adoption records. Me heart nearly stopped. It was a birth certificate. A baby girl born in October. Father, Dennis Mitchell. Mother, Evelyn Harper. She had his last name. And she'd been placed for adoption a month later. I sat there frozen. Tears welled up, but not the kind that fall sweet and soft. These were hot, angry, full of every lie I'd been fed for decades. He'd had a child before we got married. And he'd never told me. I stood up too fast and nearly lost my balance. The floorboards creaked as I made my way back down, clutching the papers like they might catch fire. When Dennis came home that evening, he tossed his gym bag by the door and grunted something about protein powder. I was waiting at the table with the letters and the photo. Who is Evelyn? I asked, keeping my voice low. He looked up confused, then annoyed. What? Evelyn Harper, Kansas? I pushed the photo across the table. He stared at it. And then for the first time in years I saw it, panic in his eyes. Where did you find that? In the box marked do not open, I snapped. Guess what? I opened it. He sat down slowly, rubbing his forehead. That was a long time ago, Joanne. Before us, we were engaged, I hissed. You were writing her after we were married. He didn't deny it. I was young, he said. Like that explained everything. We made a mistake. She didn't want the baby. I didn't know how to tell you. You had 30 years, I whispered. 30 years to say something, anything. He folded his arms, suddenly defensive. It wasn't relevant. It's not like she's in our lives. She was your daughter, I spat. Dennis stood up, jaw clenched. Don't act like this is some kind of betrayal. It's ancient history, then why keep it hidden? I asked, my voice cracking. Why bury her in a box in the attic like she never existed? He didn't answer. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding like a war drum. Not only had he forgotten me, he had buried part of himself, part of us, in a lie. I thought about that girl. Where she was now. Who she became, if she ever looked in the mirror and wondered who she looked like. And if she knew her father had traded her memory for a tidy, silent life. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office, requested copies, signed forms, paid fees. I didn't know what I was looking for: closure, vengeance, justice. I just knew I couldn't let it sit in that box anymore. That evening, I sat alone in the living room. Dennis was at the gym again, probably flexing in front of the mirror, trying to recapture a youth that had long slipped away. My eyes drifted to the fireplace, to the mantel where family photos sat in neat rows. Weddings, graduations, smiles, all built on a lie. I picked up the photo from our 25th anniversary. He was holding a champagne glass. I was holding his hand. But when I looked closer, I could see it. My smile didn't reach my eyes. It hadn't in years. And now I knew why. I gently set the photo down. It was time to find the girl he forgot. And maybe, just maybe, find the woman I used to be. I started with the return address from one of the letters, Wichita, Kansas. It was nearly 1,000 miles from where we lived in North Carolina. But distance didn't matter anymore. Not when the truth had already traveled so far to find me. I knew I couldn't just show up on someone's doorstep, especially not hers. She had a life, a family, maybe kids of her own. What if she didn't even know she was adopted? I needed more. I spent hours online digging through public records, adoption registries, social media, anywhere her name might appear. The birth certificate didn't list a first name, just female Harper. But the mother's full name was there, Evelyn Harper. I found an obituary. Evelyn had passed away from cancer. No surviving spouse, no mention of children. But buried at the bottom of the digital memorial was a comment. Just a simple, rest easy, Mom, I miss you every day. Emily Harper. Emily, I don't know how I knew, but I just did. That was her. The next step wasn't easy. I tried to tell myself I was just looking, just curious. But deep down, I was holding on to something more. Something dangerous. I was holding on to hope. Emily Harper was a teacher, 3rd grade, lived in Asheville, North Carolina, 2 hours away from me. She was beautiful, long dark hair like her mother in the photo, soft, kind eyes. I found a school newsletter with her picture in it. She had just been awarded Teacher of the Year. I sat there staring at her photo on my laptop, the glow lighting up my tear-streaked face. She looked so full of life, like someone who made the world better just by standing in it. I couldn't breathe. That night, Dennis came home to a quiet house again. I didn't speak. I didn't cook. I didn't ask how his day was. He didn't notice. He never asked why the lights were off or why I had been crying, and that told me everything. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to meet her. Not as her father's wife. Not even as her stepmother, just as a woman who needed to see the truth with her own eyes. I packed a small bag and wrote a note on the kitchen counter. Just 2 words, don't wait. I didn't tell him where I was going. I didn't owe him that. Driving into Asheville was like entering another world. The town had charm, color, laughter spilling out of cafes. I found the school easily, parked across the street, and waited. It was a Friday around awe. The front doors opened and kids began spilling out, backpacks bouncing. Parents waiting with tired eyes and open arms. And then I saw her. Emily. She was standing at the entrance, kneeling down to tie a little boy's shoe. She was laughing. He hugged her neck before running off, and she waved goodbye with both hands. She turned back to head inside and stopped. Our eyes met. It was just a moment, but it felt like a lifetime. I looked away first. She kept walking. I waited until the parking lot cleared. Then I walked across the street, heart pounding, my hands shaking as I approached the front desk. Can I help you? The receptionist asked. Yes, my voice broke. I'm trying to leave something for one of your teachers. Emily Harper. She eyed me suspiciously, then softened. Sure, what is it? I pulled an envelope from my purse. Inside was a letter I had written the night before. It didn't say who I was, just that I knew Evelyn, that I had something important to tell Emily, and that I would be in town for one more day. Staying at a small motel near the highway room, the receptionist nodded, took the envelope, and I left. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the motel window with a lamp on low, staring at the parking lot, waiting for headlights that never came. By morning, I had given up hope. I was packing to leave when I heard a knock on the door. Soft, hesitant, I opened it, and there she was, Emily, wearing jeans and a cardigan, holding the envelope in one hand, her phone in the other. Her eyes were guarded but curious. Are you Joe and Mitchell? She asked. I nodded. She stepped inside, cautious, and sat in the chair by the window. You said you knew my mother. I sat across from her. My throat tightened. I did, a long time ago. But I didn't know about you. Her expression flickered. Most people didn't. She didn't talk about it. I took a deep breath. Emily, I don't want to hurt you. I'm not here to take anything from you. I found something. Something you deserve to know. I slid a folder across the table. Inside, the letters, the photo, a copy of the birth certificate. She opened it, read in silence. Her face went pale. This is. She paused, blinking fast. He's my. Yes, I whispered. Dennis. He's your father. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she folded the folder shut and looked at me. Why now? Because I didn't know. And when I found out, I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't live with the lie he kept for so long. And you deserve the truth. She looked away. Her lips trembled. I always wondered, she said softly. She used to cry sometimes, looking at old photos. I think she wanted to tell me, but she was scared. Tears fell silently down her cheeks. I wanted to reach for her hand. But I didn't. Instead, I said, you deserved more than a secret in a box. She stood up, still clutching the folder. I don't know what to do with this, she said. But thank you for telling me. And then she was gone. I sat in that room for hours after, not crying, just breathing slowly, heavily, because part of me broke that day. But another part woke up. I wasn't done. Dennis had buried a child and a truth. But now I was going to bury something to his comfort, his control, and his illusion of innocence. It was my turn now. The house was to clean when I got back. Like someone had tried to scrub away the mess of a marriage with Lysol and silence. Dennis wasn't home. His car was gone, the gym bag missing from its usual place by the door. I didn't care. I walked straight into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine at noon. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel guilty about it. I stood in front of the fridge, staring at the magnet that held our last Christmas card. Smiling faces, matching sweaters, lies. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. I thought about what you said. I'd like to meet again. Somewhere neutral. I felt the breath leave my chest. She wanted to see me again. We agreed on a little cafe halfway between our towns. I arrived first, picked a table near the window. Ordered tea, though my hands were shaking too hard to hold the cup. Then she walked in. This time she wasn't wearing school clothes, jeans, a soft gray sweater, minimal makeup. She looked more tired, but still so alive. She sat down slowly, setting her bag on the chair beside her. I read through everything, she said. I nodded. I figured. She pulled out a folded letter. There was one you didn't give me. I blinked. What? She handed me the letter. Another one from Dennis to Evelyn, hidden between the others. She must have found it in the envelope I left. I unfolded it and began to read. And my stomach twisted. I never wanted the baby. Evelyn made the decision, but I didn't fight it. I couldn't let Joanne find out. Not with the wedding so close. It would have ruined everything. I can't afford that. I need to move on, forget. I stared at the words. I felt like I was falling. Emily went quiet. I figured maybe you hadn't read that one, she murmured, but maybe you did. And still gave it to me. I did, I said softly. You deserve to know. She looked at me then. And something shifted behind her eyes, something sharp and fierce. You know what hurts? She whispered. I grew up thinking I wasn't wanted because of my mother's mistakes. But he made that choice too. He erased me before I was even born. I didn't know what to say. No apology in the world felt big enough, and he lived his happy little life, she added. Voice cracking, while I wondered what I was missing, I reached across the table. This time, she let me take her hand. I missed you too, I whispered. Even if I didn't know I was missing you, she wiped her eyes. You're the first person who's ever said that to me. We sat there for a long time just breathing. Just existing in the same space. When we finally stood to leave, she hugged me and said, he doesn't deserve to know me. I nodded. I won't tell him you reached out. That's your choice, but something inside me was already shifting. It was time they knew, every one of them. My kids, Dennis, everyone who had ever looked at me like I was furniture in the background. I went home and pulled out every photo album, every scrapbook, every fragile record of the life I'd carefully built. I spread them across the living room floor. Then I grabbed a notebook and started writing every memory, every insult, every moment they didn't realize they were breaking me. I called it the diary they never read. I recorded videos to raw, emotional, honest. I didn't scream. I didn't name names. I just told the truth, day by day, quiet vengeance. Slow release. I uploaded them all to a private channel hidden behind a generic name. And then I waited. Because one day they would see it. They would see me. And when they did, I wanted it to hit them in their bones. I wasn't their shadow anymore. I was the storm coming for their silence. It was my son's voice that finally snapped something inside me. Mom, you really need to get over all this drama, he said, pacing through my kitchen like he owned it, wearing that same smug expression Dennis always had. When he was trying to shrink my pain, I had called Matthew, my youngest, just to talk. Just to be heard. Maybe to be understood. I had raised him, kissed scraped knees, stayed up with him during exams, making grilled cheese and coffee. But now he stood there at 33 years old, dismissing my heartbreak like it was a weather update. Your father and I are separating. I told him. He blinked. So, you think I'm surprised? You two haven't been close in years. Don't you want to know why? He sighed, already bored of me. Look, I love you, but you make everything into a big deal. Just divorce him and move on. That sentence slammed against my skull like a dropped pot. Move on. As if I hadn't been stuck for 30 years. As if healing were as simple as a signature and a suitcase. He didn't ask what Dennis had done. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just grabbed a protein bar and said, anyway, I've got a call in 20 minutes. Let me know when you need me to help move stuff. And then he left. That night, I couldn't sleep. My body was frozen in bed, but my mind was racing like a train with no brakes. His words echoed louder than they should have. You make everything into a big deal. I got up. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked into his old room, still untouched, like he was 15 again. Posters on the walls. Baseball trophies lined neatly on the shelf, and then I saw it. His laptop. He always left it there, calling it a backup. I know I shouldn't have. But I did. I opened it, logged in. He never changed his password. Panthers 2012. It opened instantly. There, in his chat history, was a thread with his brother, my oldest, Daniel. I stared at the screen. Then I started reading. Daniel, have you talked to Mom lately? She's been weird. Matthew, ugh, yeah, she's going full martyr mode again. Daniel, what's new? She thrives on guilt. Matthew, it's like she wants to be miserable. Daniel, I just avoid. It's easier. Matthew, honestly, once Dad dumps her, maybe she'll stop pretending like she's some kind of saint. I stopped breathing. I scrolled. It got worse. Matthew, she needs therapy. Or a hobby. Daniel, yeah, or a reality check. They laughed at me, mocked me, my own sons. The ones I carried, raised, sacrificed for. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember walking back to my bedroom. But I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, holding my stomach like I'd been punched from the inside. I had been humiliated. First by Dennis. Now by my children. The grief wasn't even sharp anymore. It was dull, heavy, and it settled into my bones. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a marriage. It was about a lifetime of being the emotional garbage bin for everyone around me. I was the fixer, the cleaner, the planner, the comforter. Never the priority. Never the person they worried about. I had given everything. And they had built their lives on my exhaustion. So I made a new plan, not to scream, not to fight, but to vanish emotionally, piece by piece. That night, I turned off my phone. I didn't answer the door when Matthew came back a few days later, knocking, calling, texting. "Are you okay?" Now suddenly he was concerned. I let the unanswered texts stack up like dirty dishes. I stopped checking the group chat. I stopped responding to family updates, and something strange happened. No one really chased after me. They just moved on like I was a temporary absence in a schedule. I watched it quietly. And then I started cleaning out the house, not like before, not to tidy, but to erase myself from it, one drawer at a time. Donating my old clothes. Shredding paperwork. Emptying shelves. It was slow. It was holy. I started to feel lighter. And with every item I removed, every picture I took down, every cabinet I cleared, I thought, you don't get to keep pieces of me anymore. Not Dennis. Not my sons. Not anyone who treated my presence like background noise. I went to the bank. Shifted accounts quietly, legally. I met with a lawyer. Updated my will. I didn't cut them off. That would be too kind. I left everything in place, but I changed the locks to my emotions. They would never know me again. Not the real me. They had proven they didn't want to. So I stopped offering. And for the first time in my life, the silence around me didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom. The wind was soft that morning, curling through the open window like a whisper, brushing my cheek as if to say, "You did it." I was standing in the doorway of my new home, small, quiet, surrounded by trees that sang in the breeze instead of shouting demands at me. Light blue walls. Flowers in a garden I planted myself. And inside, not a single voice trying to drown me out. It had been months since I left. Months since I looked anyone in that old house in the eye, and still no one came after me. Not Dennis. Not the boys, and I didn't cry over it. Not anymore. I'd poured enough tears into people who used them to build boats and sail away with my devotion. Now I was the ocean, and they would feel my absence like a tide they could never control. The day started like any other, quiet and slow. I made coffee strong and black, just how I liked it, not how Dennis used to complain about. I sat on the porch with my cup, letting the sun warm my face. My laptop pinged a new comment on one of my videos. The anonymous diary I had started, the woman in the window. No names, no faces, just my voice reading pieces of the life I used to live. Episodes titled simply, "The Burnt Toast, The Forgotten Call, The Empty Dinner Table." Thousands of people found the channel, most of them women. Most of them just like me. They wrote things like, "I thought I was the only one. You said what I never had the courage to. This made me cry, and then it made me brave." It was healing. It was power. Then I saw it. A new email, subject, "Please, Mommy." Stared at it. It was from Matthew. I waited a long time before opening it. "I saw your videos. Someone from my office sent one in our team chat without knowing. I recognized your voice. I'm not proud of the things I said. I know I hurt you. I don't even know how to start fixing it, but I want to if you let me." There was a second email from Daniel. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was a coward. I didn't want to face what I did to you. What we all did. I wish I could take it back." I closed the laptop. I didn't respond. Not because I hated them, but because I finally understood something sacred. I didn't need them to be whole. I wasn't waiting for their redemption. I had already found mine. Later that week, I received a certified letter from Dennis. Inside, a handwritten note. "Joanne, I saw your videos, too. I didn't realize how blind I'd been until the whole world told me. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know. I see you now. I wish I had sooner." He had enclosed a check, a large one, not as a bribe, not as hush money. Just labeled, "What I owe you for the life you gave me." I didn't cash it. But I didn't send it back either. I tucked it into a drawer with the letters I wrote but never mailed. That evening, I lit a candle in the kitchen. Just one, like I had all those years ago, but this time, it wasn't for an anniversary. It was for myself. A ceremony. A beginning. I made dinner. Nothing fancy, a little pasta, garlic bread. I poured a glass of wine and sat alone at my table, and I smiled because I wasn't lonely. I was free. I raised my glass toward the window, toward the moon rising above the trees, and whispered to the woman they forgot. To the woman I found, and in that silence, where once I was invisible, I became unforgettable. The night before our anniversary, I ironed his favorite shirt, not because he asked, but because part of me still wanted to believe he might wear it and take me out somewhere, anywhere. 33 years of marriage had to count for something, but the morning came like all the others. Empty. He came downstairs already dressed for the gym. Tank top, shorts, headphones around his neck. I was setting the table, careful with the napkins, warming the biscuits in the oven the way he liked them. He didn't look at me. Not once. Just grabbed his protein shake, gulped it down, and tapped away at his phone. I heard the little ding of a social media post. My heart dropped. I turned to see the screen, a photo of him in the gym mirror, sweat gleaming. Caption, still grinding, no days off, no mention of me. No mention of our wedding day. No mention of 3 decades of sacrifice. I stood frozen, the smell of biscuits rising behind me. And felt it, the shift, like something inside me had snapped, clean and quiet. Like a bone that's been cracked for years and finally gives way. He looked up then. Chewing a protein bar, what's with the food? We got company or something? I walked over and placed his plate on the table, eggs, toast, jam, and a plain white envelope beside his juice. He sat down, oblivious. Picked up the envelope, still chewing. What's this, a card? He mumbled, grinning. I didn't answer. He opened it and read. His smile vanished. Divorce? The word tasted foreign in his mouth. I nodded. Double quotes. Wait, are you serious? I looked him in the eyes for the first time in weeks, maybe months, 5 years in a row. Dennis, 5, you didn't even say good morning. He blinked like he couldn't process it. I was heading to the gym. Didn't know you'd turn into a drama queen over a date. I laughed, sharp, bitter, cold. It's not the date. It's that you stopped seeing me somewhere around then. He scoffed and stood up. Double quotes. Oh, come on, Joanne. You're really going to throw away everything over this? No, Dennis, I said. You threw it away. Year after year. Ignoring me in this house like I was the maid. Smiling for strangers online while forgetting the woman who kept your life glued together. He was quiet then for once. He had nothing to say. I walked upstairs, left him sitting there with his juice and his silence. I didn't cry. Not this time, because somewhere deep in my bones, I already knew this wasn't about an anniversary. It was about everything that came after, and the box in the attic was calling to me. The attic door moaned as I pulled it open. The wooden ladder creaked under my weight like it knew the burden I was carrying up with me. It wasn't just a box I was looking for. It was something more, something that had lived in shadows and dust. The attic smelled stale. The kind of air that had been sitting untouched for years. Dennis had always told me not to bother with anything up there, old work stuff, boring. Nothing worth touching, and for most of my life, I listened because that's who I was back then. Someone who didn't question, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I pushed aside faded Christmas decorations, dusty storage bins, and a suitcase we hadn't opened since our honeymoon. And then I saw it, the gray metal box. The same one I'd noticed for years but never dared to open. It sat tucked away in the far corner like a secret buried under decades. I dragged it into the light and knelt beside it. The latch was stiff, but it finally gave in. Inside were old papers, yellowed, creased from being folded and refolded. My fingers trembled as I pulled them out one by one. Letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Evelyn Harper. I opened the first one. I miss you every day. I wish things were different. My heart slowed. I opened another. I'll never stop loving you. Even after I say I do. I couldn't breathe. They were all from Dennis. Some written before our wedding. Some written after. Some from the early years of our marriage, after we'd moved in together. He hadn't simply remembered someone from his past. He'd loved her actively and secretly, while building a life with me. My stomach twisted. At the bottom of the pile was a manila folder filled with official documents. My hands shook as I opened it. Adoption papers, a baby girl, Emily Harper. Born in October, just 6 months after we got engaged. And Dennis had signed the papers. Father, Dennis R. Mitchell. Mother, Evelyn Harper. The baby had been put up for adoption 1 month after birth. He had a daughter. And he never told me. The attic spun around me. My breath grew shallow, my knees weak. I clutched the papers like they could stop the truth from cutting any deeper. But the truth was already inside me. He had buried a child in silence. And he had buried me in the same box. I stayed up there for what felt like hours, reading and rereading until every illusion I had left finally collapsed. And then I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. I wasn't going to scream or cry or beg. He didn't deserve my pain. He was going to get my silence, my distance, my plan, because something inside me had shifted again, and this time, it didn't break. It sharpened. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. It wasn't the wrinkles or the gray hair, it was the stillness in her eyes. Not numbness. Not sadness, resolve. I realized I had spent 3 decades living in the background of my own life, a faded figure, beside a man who never really saw me. I had loved, served, forgiven, and in return, I had been made invisible. Not anymore. Downstairs, Dennis was already gone, off to the gym like always. His keys missing, his shaker bottle on the counter, the blender sitting unwashed. I didn't touch any of it. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with the adoption file, the letters, and a legal pad. And I started writing, not to Dennis, to her. Dear Emily, you don't know me, but I know your name. I know the year you were born. I know the man who gave you life and the man who never gave you a place in his. I don't know what your life became, but I hope it was beautiful. I hope you were loved. I hope the world was softer to you than it was to the girl I used to be. The words came slowly at first, then poured out like a river finally breaking through a dam. You deserve to know that you existed. That someone kept your name in a box hidden like a wound. You deserved more. I didn't know if I'd ever send it, but I needed to write it. I folded the letter and tucked it into my purse. That afternoon, I drove into town, first to the library, then to the courthouse, anywhere I could search for something. Evelyn Harper. Emily Harper. A clue, a thread, anything. It took time, too much time. I hit dead end after dead end. But eventually, a birth record led to an obituary. Evelyn Harper, Wichita, Kansas. And on the digital memorial page, in the condolence comments buried beneath the prayers and rest in peace messages, there was one thing that made my heart stop cold. I read the message again and again. I miss you every day. Mom, I wish you had told me more. Emily, she existed. She had survived. And she was searching too. The trail led to Asheville, North Carolina. An elementary school teacher. A quiet, peaceful life. Only 2 hours from me. I sat in my car for an hour just holding the address. The sky turning gold as evening crept in. Then I drove home in silence. That night, I packed a small bag, nothing dramatic. A toothbrush, a change of clothes, and the file. I didn't tell Dennis I was leaving. I just left a note, "Don't wait up," and then I drove. The road to Asheville was long and winding, the mountains rising like silent sentinels around me. When I pulled into her school's parking lot the next day, I couldn't bring myself to go in. I just sat behind the wheel and watched. Children spilled out in waves, their laughter filling the air. Parents waited at the curb. Teachers stood at the doors, waving, smiling, and then I saw her. Emily. Long dark hair, warm eyes. She knelt to tie a little girl's shoe, then looked up and smiled, not at me, just at the world. And my breath caught. She was real. She was here. And she had no idea who I was. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. I didn't get out, not yet. I wasn't ready, but I would be, because this wasn't just about the daughter Dennis had hidden. It was about the woman I had forgotten, me. And she was just beginning to wake up. The next day, I went back. I didn't dress up, just a soft cardigan and old slacks, comfortable, quiet. I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to cross a line I had spent years pretending didn't exist. I walked into the school's main office just before dismissal. The receptionist smiled politely. "How can I help you?" "I'm here to leave something for Miss Emily Harper," I said, handing her a sealed envelope. Inside was the letter I'd written and a note. "Please read this when you're alone. If you'd like to meet, I'll be staying at the Blue Pines Motel, room 12. The receptionist nodded and slipped it into a mail slot. No questions, I left. And waited. The Blue Pines was one of those roadside motels with creaky floors, floral curtains, and a faint smell of lemon cleaner and old pine wood. I sat by the window, curtain cracked open, watching the parking lot for hours. By nightfall, I told myself to let it go, to sleep. But my chest buzzed with a restless, nervous electricity. I had done something irreversible. The next morning, as I was brushing my hair, I heard a knock. 3 soft taps. I froze. My hands, my breath, my thoughts. Everything stopped. I opened the door. She was standing there. Emily, closer than ever. Her face filled with questions, her hands gripping her phone. She looked so much like him and yet nothing like him at all. Her eyes held depth, warmth, curiosity. "Are you Joe and Mitchell?" she asked. I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak. "I got your letter," she said. "Can I come in?" She sat on the small motel chair, looking at the folder I had placed on the table. She didn't touch it yet. "I don't know why I came," she said quietly. "But something in your letter. It felt honest." "It was," I whispered. She took a deep breath. "So you were married to him?" "Yes," I said. She reached for the folder and opened it, her eyes scanning the letters. "This is real?" I nodded again. "I always wondered," she murmured. "My mom never talked about him. Only once, when I was 12. She cried a little and said, 'Some truths aren't safe,' and then she never brought him up again." "She loved you," I said softly. "I can see that. Even from the way Dennis wrote about her," Emily scoffed. "So he loved her too. And still gave me away." Silence settled between us. Then she asked the question I had dreaded. "Did he ever try to find me?" I looked straight into her eyes. "No," she swallowed hard. "That hurts," she whispered. "It should," I said gently. She stared down at her hands for a long moment before asking, "So, why are you here?" I took a breath. "To tell you that you're not a secret anymore, that you matter," I said. "Even if he made you feel like a mistake. You're not. You're the truth he buried. But I won't let him bury you again." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this," she admitted. "You don't have to do anything," I said. "This isn't for him. It's for you. And maybe for me, too." She looked at me, then really looked, and finally nodded. We talked for 2 hours after that. Not just about Dennis, but about her life, her job, her students, her garden. She was brilliant, compassionate, brave. Everything I had once hoped a daughter of mine would be. When she left, she hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for finding me." I sat on the motel bed long after the door closed, her perfume still lingering in the room. For the first time in decades, I felt seen. But more than that, I felt real. I didn't tell Dennis. Not about Emily, not about the motel. Not about the truth I had dug up from the attic like bones in the dirt. He didn't deserve to know that she existed in my life now. That I had found something sacred, something his lies had tried to erase. It was mine, ours, a secret I kept not to hide, but to protect from the rot he'd left behind when I returned home. Nothing in the house had changed. The laundry was still piled on the floor on his side of the bed. His gym clothes were draped over the back of the living room chair, like a flag planted on conquered territory. The protein shake still filled the fridge in neat little rows, but something in me had changed. I didn't wash the clothes. I didn't cook. I didn't clean, and Dennis noticed. By day 3, he stood in the doorway, hands on his hips. "What's going on with you lately?" I looked up from my notebook, calm. "Nothing. Well, I mean, the house is a mess. You haven't made dinner since last week. You didn't notice when I did," I replied. "So I figured it wouldn't make a difference when I stopped." He rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, Joanne. You can't seriously still be on this kick." I said I was sorry about the anniversary. "You didn't say you were sorry," I reminded him. "You said I was being dramatic." "Well," he started, then stopped himself. I stood up slowly. "Dennis," I said, my voice level, "what would you do if I disappeared?" He blinked. "What?" "If I just packed a bag and left. Not with a note. Not with a fight. Just vanished." "That's not funny." He frowned. "It's not supposed to be." He rubbed his neck. Suddenly uncomfortable. "Looked, if you're unhappy, we can go to counseling or something." Now he wanted counseling. After 33 years of silence, invisibility, neglect, I almost laughed. But instead I said nothing because silence had become my weapon. I started small. I stopped responding to group texts from the boys. Stopped answering calls that only came when someone needed something. They didn't call to check on me. They never had. They called for recipes. For birthday reminders. For "Mom, can you send me that tax form again?" So I stopped answering. I stopped being available. And no one noticed. That was the part that broke me. But it was also the part that freed me. I pulled out a small leather-bound notebook from the drawer, an old one I used to jot recipes in. I began turning those blank pages into a record. Not of dates, but of moments, the times I was dismissed, mocked, forgotten. I titled the front, "The Diary They Never Read." Each entry became a story. The night I stayed up until 3 a.m. sewing Daniel's costume for the school play, and the next day, he told his teacher he made it with his dad. The Thanksgiving I spent alone in the kitchen while everyone else watched football and laughed in the living room. Not one of them offered to help. The day my mother died, and Dennis still asked me to pick up his dry cleaning, I filled every page. I wrote with the rage of a woman who had waited too long to scream, and then I started recording. I didn't show my face, just my voice, low and steady, reading the entries. I uploaded them anonymously to a channel I called The Window Seat. I didn't expect anyone to listen, but they did. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments. Women older, younger, somewhere in between, telling me I had written their lives. They said things like, "This is the sound of my soul. I thought I was crazy for feeling this way. You made me feel less alone." This gave me strength I didn't know I had. One night, I found Dennis asleep in the recliner, snoring, the TV buzzing with static. I stared at him, not with hatred, not with sadness, but with clarity. He would never understand the depth of what he broke. And I didn't need him to, because I wasn't speaking to him anymore. I was speaking to the world, and the world was finally listening. It was a Sunday morning when the silence in the house started to feel different. Not oppressive, not hollow, just peaceful. Dennis had left early again. The gym, probably. Or maybe brunch with one of his gym buddies, the ones who treated him like a motivational poster. With a pulse. I didn't ask anymore. I no longer tracked his movements, hoping for crumbs of affection. The more he disappeared, the more space I had to breathe. And today, I had plans. I opened the front closet and pulled out 3 dusty photo albums, the kind with plastic sleeves and faded labels. Family vacation, Matthew's graduation, Christmas. Years of captured moments, staged smiles. But I could see it clearly now. I was never really in them. Sure, I was physically present, off to the side, holding a plate. Standing behind someone, but never in the center. Never framed with care. Always the background. Always convenient. I spread the albums across the floor and did something I never imagined I would do. I began taking the pictures out one by one, not to destroy them, but to free myself from them. Each photo went into a new box labeled what they remember. Beside me, I placed a brand new album. Blank and waiting. Its label, what I lived, into that one. I began placing my pictures, the ones no one else ever bothered to print. A blurry photo Emily had taken of me sipping tea in Asheville. A picture I'd snapped of the mountains outside the motel. A Polaroid from years ago of me reading under the tree in the backyard. Real moments. Not posed. Not performative. Mine. Midway through, I paused to check my messages, not out of habit. Just curiosity. There were 2 new voicemails from Matthew. The first one, Mom, hey? I know you're probably mad. I just wanted to check in. Can you call me back, please? The second, left a day later, okay. I saw your video. The window seat. I didn't know it was you at first, but I know now. I'm sorry, Mom, really, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize any of it. I listened without reacting. Then I deleted both, because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's a decision, and I had made mine. Later that evening, I made a list. Not a to-do list, not a grocery list, a legacy list. At the top I wrote, things I will leave behind that matter, truth, a name they'll remember. A voice that didn't stay quiet. A daughter who knows she was never forgotten. A story other women can live louder, because often I recorded something new. It was the first video where I let myself be seen. Just my hands at first, sorting the albums, writing in the notebook. Then, slowly, I turned the camera toward myself. Lines on my face. Gray in my hair. I didn't apologize for any of it. I said, this is what a woman looks like when she stops waiting to be chosen, and I posted it. The response was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Messages poured in, women from all across the country. Texas, Oregon, Maine, Miami. Some cried, some raged, some whispered. Thank you for showing me I'm not invisible. I had become the woman I wished I'd seen when I was younger. And I didn't need anyone to validate it. Not Dennis. Not the boys. Not even Emily, though I had a feeling she was watching quietly. Maybe even smiling. As I sat on the porch, sipping tea in the fading light, I felt something rise inside me. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had stopped asking others for permission to feel whole. And in that stillness, something inside whispered, it's almost time. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. For release. For goodbye. For something so long overdue it had become myth. Freedom. The morning began. With soft rain tapping against the window, a gentle rhythm that reminded me of the lullabies I used to hum when the boys were babies, before all the noise, before the hurt, before I became the woman who held everything together until her own pieces no longer fit. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a warm mug, staring at the empty chair across from me, Dennis's chair. He technically still lived in the house, but ever since the day I handed him the divorce papers beside his orange juice, we barely spoke. He didn't ask questions anymore. He didn't try. Maybe he believed that if he ignored the cracks, the walls wouldn't cave in. But today, I had something for him, a farewell. Not a fight, not a confrontation. Just the truth. Quietly, almost like a ritual, I packed a small box with only what I needed. Everything that mattered was already waiting for me in the cottage outside Asheville. Just 2 towns from where Emily lived. She didn't know it yet, but our paths would cross again. And this time, I'd be ready to offer her more than a box of old secrets. I sat down and wrote a letter for each of them. To Dennis, you'll read this and assume I'm angry. But I'm not. That burned out long ago. What I feel now is the calm that comes after the fire. I gave you my best years, Dennis, and you didn't even notice when they passed. I asked for nothing and somehow you offered even less. I used to grieve that, but now I simply release it. This isn't a goodbye, it's a letting go. I free you from pretending and I free myself from disappearing. To Daniel and Matthew, you called me dramatic, a martyr, a weight. But I remember staying awake during storms because thunder scared you. I remember hand sewing Halloween costumes. I remember covering for your father when he forgot your birthdays so you wouldn't feel forgotten. 2. And I remember your words, every single one. I don't want your guilt. I want your growth. If one day you understand what I gave, I hope it teaches you how to cherish the women who stand quietly beside you now. I placed all the letters on the hallway table. Then I cooked one last meal just for me. Eggs, bacon, toast piled with too much butter. The same breakfast I'd made for everyone else 1,000 times. This time, I sat and ate it slowly, like a farewell feast to the version of myself I had carried for so many years. By noon, I had my coat on. At the door, I paused. Then on impulse I walked to the living room and flicked on the TV. Dennis's favorite news channel filled the silence. I turned it off again and wrote 3 words on the whiteboard by the fridge. I was here. Then I left. No slammed doors, no theatrics. Just a choice. The cottage welcomed me with open windows and cool mountain air sweeping through the rooms. Like a blessing. I placed my new album, What I Lived, right in the center of the shelf. The next morning, a message appeared on my anonymous channel. Emily had written, "I saw the video, the one with your face. I knew it was you. I just wanted you to know. I'm ready to talk. Really talk. If you are." I closed the laptop slowly and smiled. I was ready. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a woman trying to hold the world together with shaking hands. I felt like a woman stepping into who she was always meant to be: free, whole, unforgettable. Later that week, an invitation appeared under my cottage door. A white envelope, simple handwriting: "You are invited to dinner one last time." At first, I thought it might be from Emily, but she always added a little loop to her signature. This was stiff, plain, familiar Dennis. I almost didn't go. But then I remembered all the years I'd swallowed silence like medicine. The dinners I'd cooked with trembling hands while he scrolled through his phone. The nights I sat across from him feeling invisible. So I went, not for him, but for me. The house looked exactly the same. Too clean, too cold. Like a hotel trying to imitate a home. Dennis opened the door and stepped aside without speaking. I walked in. The smell of roast chicken drifted through the hallway, an obvious attempt at normal. But nothing about this was normal anymore. The dining table was set for two. Real candles flickered softly, cloth napkins folded neatly. He gestured for me to sit. We ate mostly in silence. He kept trying to meet my eyes. I kept looking past him, at the photos on the wall, our family frozen in time. All those smiles that never quite reached mine. Finally, he spoke. "I saw your videos," he said. I said nothing. I didn't know it was you at first. Someone at the gym shared one. Said it reminded him of his mom. I waited. He cleared his throat, like hearing a ghost. Still, I said nothing. "I guess I always thought you were okay. That we were fine." I looked at him. Because I didn't scream, he looked down. "I didn't know how unhappy you were," he whispered. "I wasn't unhappy," I said. "I was erased." He nodded slowly. "I deserved to lose you." I leaned back. "You didn't lose me. You gave me away, one thoughtless moment at a time." He swallowed hard. "I wanted to say sorry." "You just did," I said. He blinked. "That's it?" "I didn't come for an apology, Dennis." "Then why did you come?" I met his eyes, calm, sure. "To forgive myself for staying as long as I did." He looked stunned. Broken even. But I didn't reach for him. I hadn't softened in years. I stood. He followed me to the door. "Is there anything I can do?" I turned. "Be better for the people who still let you close." Then I stepped out into the night, into myself. The stars over the cottage twinkled as I parked and went inside. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "Dinner? Just the two of us. I want to tell you about my life." "I want to hear about yours." I replied, "Yes, and this time, I'll sit at the head of the table because I'm not a supporting character anymore. I am the author, and my story has just begun." The table was round this time. No head, no sides, no hiding behind roles or silence. Emily had chosen a small sunlit cafe tucked between an art gallery and a bookstore in Asheville. She said she liked it because it was quiet but full of stories. I arrived early, holding my breath in the space between then and now. I wore a soft blue sweater and my favorite earrings, tiny silver birds I hadn't worn in years. They had been a gift from Dennis back when he noticed birthdays and joy. But today, they were mine. She walked in 10 minutes later, cheeks rosy from the cold. Tote bag over her shoulder, a book tucked under her arm. She looked at me and smiled, and this time it was different. Not guarded. Not uncertain. Warm. We ordered tea and sat in a booth near the window. "No walls, no masks. I've been thinking about that day," she said after our first few sips at the motel. "The way you looked at me, I remember." I said softly, "You looked heartbroken." I nodded. I was. "But not because of him." "No," I whispered. "Because I didn't know how much of my life I had missed until I saw your face." She set her tea down gently. "I wasn't angry, at you. I thought I'd be, but I wasn't." "I'm grateful," I said. "Because I don't know how I would have survived your silence." She smiled again. "I thought I had no mother. And you thought you had no daughter. Life really did a number on us, didn't it?" We laughed softly, a laugh more like a shared sigh than anything else. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. "I want you to have this," she said, sliding it across the table. I opened it. Inside was a photo frame, a picture of the two of us at the cafe where we first met. She must have had someone take it when I wasn't looking. In the photo, I was laughing. Truly laughing. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen myself that way. My hands trembled as I touched the frame. "I want you in my life," she said. "Really in it. Holidays, birthdays. Just Saturdays, even." Tears welled in my eyes. "I'd like that. More than you know." And then she added, quietly, "When I have kids, I want them to call you grandma." It hit me like a wave, not grief, not sorrow, but joy. Unexpected, uninvited, and completely welcome. We stayed in that cafe until the sun dipped low. until the waiter dimmed the lights and placed little candles on each table. When we hugged goodbye, she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me or on yourself." I whispered back, "Thank you for being found." That night, I returned to the cottage. I lit a candle on the porch and sat in silence. But this time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was sacred. Inside, on my bookshelf, next to my diary and the albums I'd finally organized, I placed the photo of us front and center. Not hidden in a box, not buried in the attic, but seen, cherished, alive. Because in the end, I hadn't just served breakfast with divorce papers. I had served myself a second chance. And it was the best damn meal of my life. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.